and also take advantage of the numerous opportunities to speak before the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council when, if such occurs, the development is formally submitted for the city's consideration. And with that, I'd like to welcome everyone to the meeting. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the committee members, Mr. Newberry and I would like to extend our thanks for your attendance tonight as well. We do have a large group of attendees that will be representing the project and the development site. And the intent of the department's very short comments is just to identify what we've provided for you tonight. And again, we did, as always, provide the agenda for the meeting that we have now just begun. We also included the updated regulating plan that was recently adopted by the Planning and Zoning Commission and ratified and endorsed by the City Council. It's important to note that the regulating plan indicates this particular 34-acre tract of land as neighborhood edge transition, the new district. Along with that, we provided the regulations for that new land use category in town center, the neighborhood edge transition district. We also provided you an aerial photograph just to kind of give you a perspective of where this particular site is located relative to other major landmarks. The petitioner and petitioner's engineer provided you the concept plan, which I'm sure you spent most of your time reviewing. And then finally, the owner or owner under contract for the site who develops housing has provided you some photographs of some of the single-family dwellings they've constructed elsewhere. And so hopefully the package is sufficient for all of you tonight. And we again appreciate your attendance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we're going to promote a whole lot of people here, I guess. So if you'll give us a second, we'll get that underway.
And with that, I will shut my bedroom door.
And Mr. Chair, I'm not sure who's going to be the spokesperson for the group. Mr. Clement is the owner or owner under contract, but I believe David is David Bowles of Bowles Engineering.
I'd like to welcome the three of you, and I'm interested in seeing your presentation for this property.
And I was muted. Sorry, I didn't know I was muted.
That's okay. Go ahead.
So I'm going to share my screen here. That's all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So over here is the site that we're talking about. And I think Mr. Vunich gave you an idea where it's at. It's on the north side of Manchester Road, Old Manchester Road, west of 109. The site's 34.55 acres, and we understand that it's slated for neighborhood edge zoning, which would be 1.5 acres per lot. So in doing that, you would come out with 23 home sites on it. Just to give you an idea what the site looks like, there's a ridge that pretty much runs out this direction right here. And then another one that comes out this direction with a draw that comes down here where we're proposing this lake. So we pretty much kept the road on top of the ridge to do as little disturbance as possible. There's an old existing pond over here on the west side of the property, and it's kind of more of a mosquito pond than anything. So our hope would be to clean that up and make that into a nice feature rather than being something that's just, swampy. And a detention basin would go back here in this draw, and we try to make it a wet basin. So this would be a lake over in this area right here. So the lots we're proposing, they're a mixture, but most of them, I think the smallest lot is lot 20 here, which is 24,000 square feet, slightly over half an acre. And the lots here in the back, because they're pie shaped and on the cul-de-sac, they would be over an acre. And then we have one little cul-de-sac that comes out here. The right-of-ways that we're showing on here, and what we're really doing is we're looking for some feedback from you, because there's some flexibility on a site like this. For example, I'm showing a 50-foot right-of-way coming back here with, I believe, a 25-foot building line on it. But we could move the houses up. We could do a lot of different things. This right-of-way I put in as a 40-foot right-of-way because these home sites are a little bit different in here. Let me show you some of the houses that, and the developer is John and Lauren Clement, and they have built a lot of homes out actually where I used to live, which is out in the Defiance area. But they build a nice house. I'm going to put some of them up here. Hold on. So this is a home that's off of a road called Wilson Road out in the Defiance area. One thing that I would say about John is his family, he comes from a family of brickers. So the brickwork on these homes is immaculate. Their family has been doing that for generations. Here's another home that they have out there. But this just shows you the style of the houses and homes that they build. You can see the brickwork that I was talking about up here and along the top of the roof, but that's the type of work that they do. And these would all be site entry homes. I'd have to ask John exactly what type of square footage they typically are, but they're all would be site entry homes, and the lot widths are, the minimum would be 120 foot, but we would try to actually make them a little bit wider, particularly on the cul-de-sacs here to give some space between the houses. And with that, this line right here is where I believe that the tree, we would clear these areas in here. And I know that we're way ahead on what the tree removal would be, but that's basically it. And we just wanted to get your feedback and what your thoughts are on it. John, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I guess to answer your question about the house sizes, our ranches, pretty much the minimum square footage of the ranches we build are about 2,500 square foot. And then our story and a halves are around 3,000, is about as small as we go, but we're building homes up over 4,000 square foot now for the most part.
Right.
So, but
Mayor Bowen?
So thank you, and thanks for your interest in our city and for this presentation. I just have a couple of questions. So, and this may be to either you or to Mr. Vintage. So this is in Neighborhood Edge, and the regulations require a frontage of 150 feet and a depth of 300 feet. And you went through that rather quickly. So and I can't make out from this drawing how those requirements correspond to what you're showing here. So my question simply is, are all of these lots at least 150 feet in width and 300 feet in depth?
So that was a mistake. I should have pointed that out, but we would be requesting the rezoning to R1 with a PRD, which would allow some flexibility in the lot sizes, but the density would be 1.5 acres per lot.
Okay, when you say density, what I assume you mean is when you factor in all the common area around it. So the 1.5 acres isn't going to be actually titled in anyone who buys these. They're going to have the smaller lot, but your characterization of it is by virtue of having all of this additional land around it that in effect it's 1.5 acres. Is that right?
That is correct. So we would rezone the property to R1, which is there is no density classification for a 1.5 acre lot that I'm aware of. So we would rezone it to R1, but we wouldn't seek R1 type density. We would stick to the 1.5 acres per lot. But we would be requesting a PRD, which would allow the lots to be smaller and the width, variances in the ordinance.
So just putting all the terminology aside, the owners would not have 1.5 acres. They would have something smaller. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So if you did what the current rule is, and you know, we kind of just got through going through a lot of this. So if you did 150 foot wide by 300 foot depth to not require a zoning reclassification, how many homes could you get on it with that?
Okay, either way, we'd need a zoning reclassification, but you know, I actually have not done that type of layout. One of the huge problems is going to be the distance between this corner here and here. I know is less than 600 feet, so you would have a single loaded road in this area, and you know, and then we would have to try to take advantage of this area over here for lots, which I don't think we.
Well, that assumes you want to sell the same number of homes, which obviously may not be the case. I mean, in theory, if you built 4 homes, you could easily get 4 homes on there. So I think what you're saying is if you wanted to keep the same number of homes that you're proposing, yes, you might have to put some in some undesirable places. But my question is, without regard to all that, you know, putting the number of homes in reasonably good spots, do you have an idea roughly of how many homes there would be if you stayed within 150 by 300 foot dimension as is required by neighborhood edge?
Okay, I don't have a layout that shows that, but I think you're going to lose. And would you still try to keep the lots at 1.5 acres?
Yes.
Okay, so you know, if you can imagine this lot right here, which is a 1/2 acre, that would be a lot right there.
Yeah.
So you would probably have, you know, 10 lots if you did that.
Yeah. So
And maybe less.
yeah. So I don't know how much history you've looked at with respect to the city and specifically my positions on things. I don't. I try not to die on too many swords, as they say, but one of them is when we have requirements that sets forth the minimum lot size. It's just not something that I've ever really been fond of in terms of taking that down, and I've got a number of reasons for it. So I think the home design that I've glanced at, by all accounts, and particularly the masonry, I would agree they look very nice, and I commend you on that. Taking this area that's zoned, and Joe, did we just recently rezone this to neighborhood edge?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we concluded the process in early summer.
Yeah, so that's what I thought. Thank you. So we just recently got through having a citizen committee decide that this would be neighborhood edge. And at any point in time, even if that weren't the case, I would not be in favor of reducing the lot sizes. And I, with all due respect, don't subscribe to the, in effect, 1.5 acres because there's common ground. You either have 1.5 acres or you don't. And that's just kind of where I stand on that. But certainly it's just magnified by the fact that our citizen-led committee just got through doing the town center plan and proposing these lot sizes be what they are required to be. The council just recently approved that, as Joe mentioned, and that just, to me, makes it even worse. So hate to tell you this, but I don't think I would go for reducing the lot sizes beyond what's currently required.
Okay, can I respond to that?
You sure can.
It seems to me, and I've been on the other end of this, where I've done projects in the city that we've proposed doing densities, and I understand non-urban densities, which are, have been done all over the city, where we were told that you can't do a non-urban density because you don't want, you want 3 acre actual lots on it. So I've done that in the city and been turned down on those. But it's my understanding or my observation that when we are in town center area or something like this, which is basically, I consider this basically part of the town center community, then these types of things are allowed in the town center. That we've done many developments where the lots are smaller than what would be normally done in a particular zoning class. So it seems to me that when this was zoned to neighborhood edge, I actually assumed or thought that this would be similar to what we would do in the town center, where a lot of those regulations, such as the Natural Resource Protection Plan, which I pretty much know very well, and things like that don't necessarily apply like they don't in the town center. And maybe Joe can
Yeah.
shed some light on that.
So, Mr. Chairman, may I continue in
Yeah.
response? Okay, thank you. And Mr. Benish may want to add to this. I mean, the utilization of a PRD, getting variances from our natural resource protection boundaries and so forth, those can occur. The PRD can occur. The variances can occur in any of our zoning classifications, whether it's town center or non-urban or whatever. I think the point that I'm kind of hearing you make is that, you know, there might be a little more leeway with that in town center. And I don't know that I necessarily disagree with that. But is this, you know, whether we want to call this part of town center or adjacent to town center, it's actually neighborhood edge. I mean, it's on the outer edge of town center. I don't know that it does any good to quibble over that. It's certainly close to town center. But whether this was close to town, it's close to town center, out or you know, farther away or immediately in it, we just got through deciding what the minimum lot sizes would be for this, and to now, within weeks of that, change it. If we were going to do that at any point in time, I just would not be in favor of that. Because our committee, to kind of go to your point, David, our committee that did this considered those lot sizes, those lot minimums, when it was developing the town center plan, and attached this as a neighborhood edge area, or identified this as a neighborhood edge area. So that analysis that you're talking about, our citizen-led committee and ultimately the council did, and made the decision that these should be much larger than what you're proposing.
And maybe I need to go back and research that myself, but I was under the impression, and maybe wrongly, that 1.5 acres was a density for the neighborhood edge, similar to how it is in the town center.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Vernish, but this is part of the town center now, is it not?
Yes, the Town Center Update Team recommended amending the boundary to include this particular property, and that was adopted by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and again, endorsed and ratified by City Council.
Councilmember Clark?
When we did vote on this, I understood this area to be that the properties would, as the mayor was explaining, each have the 1.5 acres to make it a smooth transition from the high density to the 3 acre minimum, so that it flowed a little smoother than just going from one to the other. And so that's, I understood it to be, when I voted on it, to be just as the mayor had described.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Dave?
Yeah,
Yeah, this is Larry. I guess some of this has been said, but maybe I'll reinforce it just for the benefit of everybody. But I did like the style and the look of the homes. But it's sort of like we just got done with the major effort by the city, and then we come out of the gate and change it. It would seem to be opposite of what everybody wanted, but I would hope that, maybe a reconfiguration, it's still a viable project. I do like the look of the homes. So that is, it's a different price point, obviously, but I do think this would be a nice addition in that area if it could get done within the zoning. Thank you.
thank you. Mayor
I
Baldwin?
do.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead, Dave.
I was going to say, I do think that, like I said, most of these lots are 120 plus. I do think I could rework this and get to the width and those requirements, but there, you know, in order to make these lots 1.5 acre, it would reduce that down to just very, very few lots. I mean, 1/3 probably the number that we're showing, but I could probably get the lots up to 150 foot of width. I'm sure that might not work either, but that's my thought. I see a hand.
Yeah, Mayor Boland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would echo what Councilmember Gross said, David. I think everyone's in agreement that the product looks nice. And at the end of the day, if you've got one or two that are 95% of the acre and a half requirement or what have you, I mean, I think we can, we're reasonable people. I think we can look at that. In terms of the overall, the project as a whole. So I would encourage you to if you want to pursue this, to see what you can do within the confines of the zoning that's there, and to the extent you can, and resubmit it and see, where we can go with it. So
One of the things I'm just looking at this with the scale. I have a hard copy of it here. The lot depth is going to be something that's difficult because in very few places do I actually have 600 feet across here. So the width is something I can probably work with, but the depth is going to be difficult. And so these right here, I can actually put this lake. This isn't a retention pond, so I could actually put that onto these lots. I was just trying to make it a nice common picture.
So
Go ahead.
yeah, so Mr. Chairman, thank you. So David, for example, if you had some of the lots that were wider than 150 on the front and less than 300 depth, if in effect it's roughly 1.5 acres without adhering to the 150 times 300 configuration, I would expect that could be looked at favorably. I think the problem is when it's 50 by 100. That's just kind of, or whatever these are. And that's kind of a non-starter. So my point is, if what you're saying is the case, I'll take you at your word that the depth on in some of these instances is going to be the problem. For example, what I would call the squeeze point, between lots, basically where lots, 3, 21, 4, and 20 are located. Maybe those are wider than others, but in effect, you still get the same amount of land without the depth. I mean, I want to see what it looks like for final decision, but I would look more favorably on that as in effect achieving the same thing without having the exact frontage and depth than what we see here. So just an idea.
Councilmember Clark.
Thank you, Chair Beatty. Is it possible to move that road over to the edge of the, where it comes off of Manchester Road, just on the edge, and take it up through there so that you could have a full, the two lots become one with the road at the edge of them?
Sure.
Does it make any sense? Because that way you could get the width and the depth of the lot off of the road. You just wouldn't have a two-sided road.
Right. The problem is, and it's not a problem for you guys, but the problem is John needs to make this financially work, and a single loaded road is just so difficult to financially make work because it's just so expensive to build and develop these days that, I don't know. I don't know. I think it's going to be difficult to have a single loaded road. We might be able to get bigger lots in here to get these all to be 1.5 acres. I would try to take these lots and include the lake and do something like this. So I would have 2 lots right here, maybe that I might be able to do that with, and then this might be a lot.
Mr. Clement? You're muted. You're muted.
For my feasibility, what I need to be able to get is 20 lots on this property. And with what you guys are saying, it doesn't seem like that's going to be feasible here. Do you think there's any way we can work something to where we can get 20 lots in here and only, deduct 3 and still, keep everyone happy to where we can get this approved?
Mayor Boland?
So I appreciate you just, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you sort of cutting to the chase, John. And I'm a businessman and I understand what it takes to, turn a profit and those kinds of things. Just speaking for me, my answer to your question is, if you're able to configure those 20 lots or whatever it is with whatever type of home you're trying to sell here, maintaining within substantial compliance of the 1.5 acre minimums, yes. If not, I'm afraid, unfortunately, my answer to that would be no.
I guess the one question I had looking at this is looking at the cul-de-sac. It seems like you're kind of going down the hill rather than out the ridge a little more. What if you ran the cul-de-sac more along where lot 15 is, and kept the road a little more level, and lot 16 seems to be, you're planning a fair amount of fill there to make that one work. Is there room for readjusting that and maybe not having the lake quite as deep?
Well, it's going to be a challenge to get 20 lots and make them all 1.5 acres. And try to do less disturbance. So, the lots, for example, lots 6 through 10, those are all over 1 acre. So I could probably spread those out and get the width, because I don't need to add that much width to it. In fact, lot 7 is, well, they're 120 feet, so I'd have to have 30 feet to those. So I'd lose 1 lot between 6 and 10. In lot 11, for example, I can just, instead of leaving that common area, I could just absorb that into the lot. I could just push those lot lines back and make probably 11, and I'm not sure about 12, but what happens is I start making funny looking lots to try to gain area. And maybe that's where the mayor's talking about, I could do it, but maybe I make them look normal. But
Mayor Boland?
Thank you. I think, David, you hit on something. I mean, obviously, we don't want to, I don't think anyone wants to gerrymander, for example, lot 15 all the way around to the north side of the lake. But there's nothing in the requirement that says these lots have to be cut exactly mirroring each other. So, and in fact, you have some here already that are different. So if lot 15 needs to, if that north, I believe what is the northeast corner, if that needs to, swing out in some direction or in that direction to get into the 1.5 acre, the lot 11 that you were talking about, there's no requirement that the lot look on a drawing like this, they all look the same. That's not a requirement. The requirement is that they're 1.5 acres. So and you do have a fair amount of land, particularly if you can on the lower left-hand corner, I assume the southwest, if you can pull that lake into the development. I mean, you've got quite a bit of land to play with here. So I don't know, we're doing a lot of committee work. I think you get the idea, and we'd be interested if you want to do it and seeing what you can come up with while maintaining substantially the minimum acreage requirement, even though the demarcations may not be, exactly precisely going around, the cul-de-sac. I mean, there's no requirement that everyone have a lot that is demarked, the demarcations of which are exactly the same as everyone else's. So,
Let me ask,
And-
oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry.
I was just going to say, I mean, I don't believe we would require, like, you've got the 10 acres of common ground around the lake. I mean, we don't necessarily need that as common ground, I don't think, right? And so if you just put that all into those lots, I mean, that would probably work.
Well, I don't think anything's going to work to get John's 20 lots, but I can try to, we can talk about it and see what we can do, because the mayor is correct. I think right here, I can get at least 2 lots out of this.
Mhm.
And I think from 6 on, I might lose a lot here. I might lose a lot here. So I'm going to lose 2 or 3 lots between 1 and 11. These two, I think maybe lot 11, I'll just make bigger. So I'll probably have 9 lots up to here, maybe 8. And then the question is, how many can I get on this side? I don't know what this is a beautiful ridge right here, and it's a beautiful ridge. And at one time, I thought about running a couple flag lots up here. And I don't know what that obviously wouldn't have the 150-foot frontage, but I thought about doing that and trying to, because I've always thought you should put homes on good home sites and then put the lots around them. And I'm not taking advantage of this ridge right here.
Mhm.
So is that something that I could try to work in?
Mr. Vunich?
Well, our code does accommodate the use of flag lots. It's not typical. It's not atypical. It just isn't used much. So flag lots are an option in some instances.
Can you explain the flag lot term to me, Joe?
View it as a flagpole. The access is usually the slender flag pole itself, and then the area of the lot is the flag. So it has a 40-foot wide neck that then blossoms into the lot itself.
Oh, okay, I got you. Is that similar if you, I can't think of the name of the subdivision, but the one on the old MoDOT property, there's that one that sits way back at the very front of it?
That's a good example of what I would consider a flag lot.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Clark?
We may not be able to even look at this, but I was thinking if this lake, I don't know what this lake looks like, but if it's a beautiful area, and not just like a retention pond, what if you backed up houses to around the lake and utilized more of that space around it?
Which lake are you talking about?
The big one. At the northeast corner, yes.
Right. See, that's actually kind of what I was thinking, that if I could put a couple homes up here, I might be able to get them on, at least one, I could get back, I could probably put a house back here and make it on a bigger lot. In fact, I could just do this and use that,
Yeah.
make that my lot, and then put a home site back here. And that would be a flag lot that would be beautiful because it would be fronting right on that lake.
And what if you extended the other part of the road from that cul-de-sac on up and put one over on the backside of that lake?
Well, this is falling pretty good right here.
Okay.
So the ridge is basically right here. And so I don't know how far. We could probably push that a little bit, but I was trying not to do as much disturbance and stick to the 23.
Yeah, I can see where it's dropping off pretty steep there in lots 10 and 11, 9, 10, and 11.
Mm-hmm.
and even 7 and 8 to an extent.
Right,
Are those 2-foot contours? that
they
come-
are.
Okay.
They are 2-foot contours.
I deal with this stuff for a living, so.
I can tell.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, I think Mr. Voles is confusing some of the semantics associated with the language associated with this particular district. When the district was recommended by the Town Center Update Team, it spoke to single-family residential uses at a density not to exceed a total of 2 units for every 3 acres. It doesn't specifically call out that each lot should be 1.5 acres, but from a density standpoint, no more than 2 units per 3 acres. I believe Mr. Voles did the simple math and came up with 1.5 acres as the standard. And if the PRD is used based upon the regulations in the neighborhood edge transition district, and again, the caveat is using the PRD, lot widths can be as a minimum of 90 feet and lot depths 165 feet. So those are the regulations associated with the district, and I just wanted to make sure you were aware of them. Thank you.
Mayor Bowen?
So I guess the only thing I would add to what Joe said is yes, with a PRD, but a PRD, Planned Residential Overlay District, that's what PRD stands for anyone who may be watching this, that requires special approval, and I believe an ordinance from the council to actually do that. So yes, that's true, but a PRD could be done anywhere here, anywhere else. And if it's done, it does take a lot of, there's a big approval process for it. And I think where we're coming from is an effort to do something consistent with what the intent was for this property without using a PRD necessarily to do that, at least as to lot size.
Again, Mr. Mayor, I understand. I just wanted to advise you, and the PRD regulations were changed, as you mentioned, to accommodate a 2/3 majority versus a simple majority for approval.
High bar.
So even if I did some changes and I needed some minor, I tried to get it close, and like the mayor had said, I can't quite meet it on some areas, but I'm close. I would still need a PRD, wouldn't I? In order to, because I would be doing something that's not followed under the straight neighborhood edge. So I need so what I'd be requesting is a PRD with minor changes that's close. Would that be something? Or am I missing it?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I think the PRD would be necessary to ensure that you don't exceed the allowable density, because we don't have a 1.5 or a 2 unit per 3 acre zoning district designation. What we have is a land use classification, but we don't have the accompanied zoning district designation. And so the PRD would limit the number of lots and then could specify the 150-foot width, the 300-foot depth, or some allowances as you get off of Manchester Road and into the site a greater depth or distance.
Mayor Bowen?
So I think, David, relative to your question, I didn't mean when I was making the remarks about the PRD to necessarily scare you with respect to that. A PRD could be done, and I think that if you decide with John to come back with a plan that protects the minimum lot sizes, if a PRD is needed for a few of those or some other aspect of this, the chances of that PRD ordinance getting approved by the council, I think, are much greater than if you're asking for the, and I'm just speaking in practical terms here. The chance of that PRD being granted or approved rather is much greater than if you're doing it right out of the gate to lower the lot sizes. So what I would encourage you to do, hopefully without investing a lot of cost, and by the way, that's the reason we had this preliminary committee to kind of go through these things before developers put in a lot of cost, because once you take it to planning and zoning and you develop all your plans and schematics, I mean, it gets into some pretty high dollars. So what I would encourage you to do is, at the moment, not let the PRD regulatory issue be the tail that wags the dog. I would encourage you to take the comments, and you got several of them from us tonight, see what you can do relative to respecting the minimum lot sizes, given the discussion, and then let's have another look at it and go from there. And actually, I say let's have another look at it. There may be a rule with respect to this group that we only look at it once. I don't know, but if we as a group can look at it again, fine. If not, you can certainly have an audience with the Planning and Zoning Commission on it. Joe, do you have a recollection of that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there is in the bylaws for this committee a statement that it can only review the plan once, but I believe if the committee wanted to make a motion and second, could waive that bylaw in this instance.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's do it this way. So my question for, and this is all subject to the city attorney approving of this, David and John, would it be your intent that you would want to come back to this group with another stab at this project?
So I would, I have to talk to John to see if financially he's able to do that. But I would say that we would, I hate to try to get around rules, but we could submit we would actually be submitting a different plan. So.
Well, that's fine.
It seemed like.
Okay, so then I would just move that we recess this meeting until such time as that occurs. That way it'll be, I'm assuming under parliamentary procedure, the same meeting that just continues. And if the city attorney objects to that, then I would say that the qualifier on the motion would be that we just make it a motion to adjourn. But I think he would agree that under Robert's rules, we can make a motion to recess until such time as that revised plan is presented, if it is, and take it from there. That would be my motion, subject to the city attorney's approval.
Seconded by Councilmember Clark. I guess voice vote okay on that?
Yep.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? No, any abstain? Motion passes.
Well, I'd like to say we appreciate your time, and I actually like this committee as well. This is a good way to get feedback early on, instead of, like you said, spending a lot of time and a lot of effort. It's good to know where we're going and try to get some feedback early on. So I really appreciate your time.
And I guess before we leave, one question I had for Mr. Vunich. At the reserve, there's the multi-use pass that they planned on incorporating. There wasn't anything going around that property line that's shared between these two developments, is there?
No, sir, not under the current plan for the reserve.
Okay, because I guess my big disappointment is that there's no connectivity off besides Manchester between these two neighborhoods. And I feel like in the town center, there should be more connectivity between developments.
Well,
And I
Mr.
know-
Chair, oh, pardon me.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, in both instances, whether it's this proposed subdivision or the reserve at Wildwood, neither are very far along, so to speak, in the final approval processes. So if there is a way to make a connection between one to the other, it certainly can. Obviously, there'll be a connection along Manchester Road.
Right. I just know that every time you add these cul-de-sacs, it puts more and more pressure on the arterials. And to me, that's why traffic is so bad out here compared to down in the inner parts of St. Louis County, is that traffic is so limited to arterial streets that everyone's forced to use them. It would help traffic flow a lot if there was more movement within neighborhoods. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor. I know you disagree with me on this.
How did you know that, Chair Beatty? I don't necessarily disagree with you. I was just going to, and I'm not speaking for or against what you just said, but as with lots of things, there are two sides to it. Many neighborhoods do not like people cutting through their neighborhood to get to another location. And I think the farther you go out away from town center, I respect what you're saying for sure. I mean, and in town center, I think there's more leeway with that. But there are a lot of people who don't like others kind of, jetting through their subdivision to get to a certain location. So that is a little bit of a double-edged sword. That's all I wanted to say. But thank you.
Oh, I realize that, but I'm also thinking of my kids who would be limited to that one cul-de-sac for safe travels on their own.
Of course, you're going to have a trail that runs all along here at some point.
Well, I thought so, but I heard that got postponed. So I've been waiting for that for 15 years. But
Let me just throw in my thought there. I mean, the pedestrian access would not be a problem.
yeah, I mean, I'm
just-
okay with pedestrian access, but yeah, I would like to see street access as well, but pedestrian access at a minimum.
So unfortunately, I'm going to make a point of order here. We've recessed the meeting and that passed. It's probably not a good idea to keep talking about this until we have the meeting reconvene.
Okay,
With all due respect. All right.
right. In that case, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
You don't need that because the motion to recess there is no adjournment until the meeting comes back. If it does, and then we'll adjourn. So it just stays out there in effect as a meeting until it is adjourned at a later date.
Understood. So does that just mean that this is over for now?
That means this is over for now.
Sounds good.
Thank you all again.
All right,
Yeah, thank everyone for your time.